Welcome, and we're live. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am here with Justine Friedman. Justine is a registered clinical dietitian. We met a while back, and I was just so impressed with her because I felt like she really wasn't just like a regular dietitian. She really knew what she was talking about. So let me just say a few words about Justine, and then you can go on and introduce yourself to our viewers. So Justine's from South Africa originally, and she was in private practice for many years before she came to Israel. Excuse me. And she works, I think, with a wide population, but definitely with women and pre-menopause and perimenopause. And she really helps us to change our relationship to food and how food impacts all parts of us, not just the physical, but also the emotional, mental, and, for some people also the spiritual. So welcome, Justine. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Bob.
And I'll hand you the mic. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you so for that wonderful introduction. And certainly I feel more enriched since I met you just over a year ago. And we've had more interactions. We've hosted each other before. So I'm very excited to have another conversation with you because I really feel that both of our audiences just got so much value from our previous conversation. So that's the objective tonight, is to really give as much value across. So as you said, I'm originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. I made Aliyah, which means that I immigrated to Israel with my husband and our 2 teenage children. It's just over 4 years ago. And I really found that as a woman, moving a family cross countries at my time of life, which is now I'm in my late 40s, really took its toll on me. And the work that I am now doing compared to the work that I was doing in South Africa has really shifted to a much more holistic approach, because I really believe that we cannot isolate only like the nutrition that I was working with more extensively before. I really find that I need to be treated as a whole person, and my clients certainly need to be treated as a whole person. And I've always been fascinated by more than the nutrition side to the work that I do. I find that the mindset component is critical, because no matter how perfect a meal plan I ever gave a client, if they were not in the right mindset, if they were telling themselves stories and they had beliefs about their own processes and what they could and couldn't achieve, that was a huge stumbling block for them. And then to go even deeper into the soul component, because we are also not just isolated to our body and our mind, but we have that inner dimension and that greater expansive dimension to us as well. And we need to be able to nourish every aspect of that, nourish the mind, nourish the body, and nourish the soul. So I love the fact that this is what we're discussing tonight, because it really is where my practice has moved. It's certainly how I work in my own life. And let's chat.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So I'm going to just dive right into, because, in some ways I look at you and, you're also a coach, because you coach people and you assist them in making changes in their lives. So what are some of the difficult issues or things come to you with? Like, what do people struggle with, especially in their mindset? What do you hear in your practice?
So there's many dimensions to it, and everyone has a different challenges that they face. But I would say the majority of clients who come to me have been on and off diets for an extended period of times. Most women who work with me have been dieting since their teens, and some have had their mothers take them to see a dietitian or nutritionist, or put them on a diet from as young as 8 or 9 years old. And I see so much of this entrenched dieting mindset coming through in what they expect they will have to do in order to reach their goals, to be healthier, to have wellness. And exactly this mindset is what keeps them stuck. So they believe that if they don't have willpower, they will never get to their goals. They believe that if they don't feel motivated or they're not in the right mindset today, they need to wait to get to feeling motivated or to be ready to start. And I think this is where the dieting industry has really done such an injustice and a disservice to women, is because it teaches us that we either are on a diet or off a diet. We either have willpower or we don't have willpower. We either have motivation or we don't have motivation. And if we can't stick to something and we deviate, we eat something that's off the plan, then we're bad. And, eat something bad, I'm bad. And this creates such a negative dialogue and such a negative inner story. And the truth is that I come from that kind of a background. I'm one of those who started dieting at the age of 13, and I didn't need to. And when I look back at the time and I think, why did I ever do that? Because I was sucked and pulled into it. Because as a teenager, I felt inadequate in my body. I thought that if I weighed a little bit less, weighed what my friend weighed, I would be more lovable. I would be more, likable by friends. I would be more popular. I would get the boys, whatever it is. And the problem is that what I tried to do was so restrictive that it actually created the most terrible cycle. And it took me becoming a dietitian and working in this field to help myself break those habits and that mindset, which is why I now am so passionate about helping the women that I work with, and there are also some men who come to me also with similar problems. So I really find that it's this kind of the expectations of what they need to commit to in order to achieve their goals, which is often very unrealistic. And most of the clients that I work with, when we shift this, when I give them very simple way of slowly building habits, not doing this all or nothing approach, they realize they can breathe. They can finally feel like they don't have to be so restrictive and deprive themselves. They can live. They can go to Shabbos dinners. They can go on holidays, and they don't have to be challenged by, am I going to gain weight and am I going to be able to stick to it? They can just eat normally.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I don't know that I've shared it with you, but when I was a baby, I was like really chubby, and people would kind of like play with my chubbiness, and I always remember that as a sort of somewhat traumatic event. So I can only imagine that as we grow up, that for some of your clients, and I think in general, because food is difficult. It can be traumatic to go on a diet or to be told certain things. You're not, you're too heavy or you're too this, and that people never really have the opportunity to sort of heal that trauma and don't really know how to change that conversation inside their head, because obviously something is wrong with them. And it's not like alcohol, because we need food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've always said that, like, not that I want to call things a food addiction, but we cannot avoid food. We need it in order to be able to survive. So it's not like I can just, although unfortunately in extreme cases, people do starve themselves. I work with some recovering anorexics and some teenagers who are also, delving into anorexic tendencies, and they believe that they have to earn the right to eat those calories. And I think that's not only an eating disordered mindset, but even, the traditional dieters believe that if I don't exercise a certain amount, if I'm not weighing and measuring everything, I need to be able to earn what I'm going to give myself to eat that day. And it's just such a very harsh, judgmental place to come from. And I think as women, especially in this Women's Month, one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves is to have compassion for ourselves, is to learn to filter out those external messages that are driving some negative beliefs and behaviors which are really not true. One example I wanted to share with you is I had a client recently, and a doctor told her that her BMI was overweight.
Wow.
And this panicked her. And I've had another client before whose doctor said, or the insurance company said, you fall into the obese category. And this is very dangerous because this puts so much shame on somebody and causes such other negative cycle that from a trusted source, from somebody who's saying, I want to insure you, but I can't because there's something, wrong from a BMI point of view. And it's such a subjective measurement. I think it's so important that as women, we learn to move away from these absolute values of BMI and what the ideal weight, I'll put this in inverted commas, should be on the scale. That's another thing I try and move away from with my clients I really encourage them not to weigh themselves. And I have some clients who want to weigh themselves obsessively every day or more than even once a day. And I really pull them away from that. And once they let go of that need to be a certain weight, then a lot of the compassion starts coming back in and a lot of their ability to be able to really listen into what their body is naturally telling them, as opposed to worrying about stay.
You dropped off there for a second.
I'm sorry, where did you hear up to?
About, we were talking about weighing and, just the last sentence that you said, that it's, it's such a way that we hold ourselves back if we step on the scale all the time.
Absolutely.
So where do I start? I let's say I am somebody who wants to change. I want to maybe get fitter. Like, what would be the first thing that you would tell people to do?
So it's interesting because this is a conversation I have often with my clients.
Exactly.
And one of the most important things I say is that they have to manage their expectations and meet what their expectations are with what their capacity is on any specific day. So, for example, if I decide that there are certain days that I'm going to exercise, which I really do try and stick to, because I feel that if you have a habit, it's easier to stick to. And it's not, I don't always feel like doing the exercise when I've decided to, but I allow myself to choose an exercise that I enjoy, that when I'm moving my body, I don't always label it as exercise, I label it as movement. I'm trying to have joyful movement and to have an output as much as I can. So for example, if I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, okay, today, one of the things I love to do is going to a boxing class. But I wake up and I'm not feeling very energized. I'm still going to go, but I'm not going to punch as hard. And by the time I leave, I still feel good. Or let's say it's somebody who doesn't exercise at all and they're wanting to get started. Then it's about not expecting themselves to do an hour's exercise on day one. I would suggest starting with 5 or 10 minutes, doing something that is joyful movement for you. Put your headphones on if there's like songs that you enjoy. On Spotify, I've got a song list of, I'm trying to think what the name of the playlist is called now. I think it's inspiration songs or confidence boosting songs. That's what it is. And there are songs that are old, but my husband knows when I'm doing a bit of exercise in my own room because he hears me singing as well. And I love the music. It puts me in a good mood. And the music itself also is motivating. So when I say manage expectations with your capacity, it means that you don't expect more from yourself than where you're at. Does this mean that when you wake up and you say to yourself, okay, I still want to try and exercise today, but I'm really not in the mood? Then we need to have some tricks up our sleeves to overcome that slightly lazier part of our brain that just wants to be chilling on the couch, just wants to stay there, not really getting going. When I hear myself saying that, and my clients use this technique very effectively, it's just say, okay, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, I'm going to go for a walk around the block, or there's some wonderful like online little Zumba programs or walk at home programs. There's so many things you can do, or yoga, whatever is up your alley. And I say, I'm just going to do the first 5 minutes. And the truth is, once I've done 5 minutes, I'll say, okay, let me try and do 10 minutes. And if I've had enough after that, fine, I stop. But sometimes you're happy to continue. I think you have to build a muscle, not necessarily a real muscle, but a muscle of becoming somebody who invests in your health. And when you can choose activities that allow you to be invested in your health and well-being, then it gives you such strength and such motivation to continue, because you feel proud of yourself for doing that. You feel proud of yourself for showing up, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm going to go, now I'm starting to exercise and I need to do an hour, but you don't really feel like it, or you do nothing at all. That creates such negative self-talk. So I always try and encourage my clients, I want you to feel successful in whatever you are doing, even if it's one thing that you do today. Even if you wake up and you spend 5 minutes making a more nourishing breakfast for yourself, you eat that, and the rest of the day you don't worry about anything. I want you to rave to yourself, to be proud of yourself for the one thing that you did to succeed.
That's awesome. I used to be a runner, and I'm getting back into running. And one of the things I heard a long time ago was get a sexy or a cool or some great outfit when you exercise. And then just tell yourself, just put your cool outfit on. And I thought, oh, what a great idea. And some days when I used to go running, just have to put that outfit on. I'd have my outfit, and I used to have a little Apple Shuffle, listen to my music and then go off. So I agree with you. It's important to do microscopic changes, do little tiny things so that we can feel good about ourselves, because the positivity of, I did it, look at that, I can do it, fuels us and moves us forward.
Absolutely.
Christine, what do you say to people, and I've heard this from people, I don't like to sweat. I don't want to exercise because I don't want to sweat. What do you say to people like that?
There are plenty of exercises that you can do without sweating, without a doubt. And I think especially like in the group of women that I work with who are perimenopausal and menopausal, who get hot flashes, and who can sweat more than normal. If you really don't enjoy sweating, first of all, the other thing that you can do is exercise in a very well air-conditioned room so that you're not overheating. That's another thing that you can do. Especially in the height of summer, I put a fan on and the aircon on when I'm exercising, because I do tend to sweat. You can do Pilates without sweating. I do a bar class on a Sunday morning, and some of the exercises, yes, does get your heart rate up, but a lot of it, I don't necessarily break a sweat, but I've still done like some kind of strength training and toning exercises. There are so many exercises that you can do that don't necessarily get you to be drenched in sweat.
Okay. So there's things I can do. And so now you have me exercise. Okay, so now I'm exercising. Now what comes next?
Okay, so first of all, it depends on what your priorities are. Like, what do you want to work on first? I try to get my clients to choose, and everybody is different. There's no one size fits all program. And I think that's also where I'm very against the traditional dieting approach, because it's like, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to eat on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Everybody is completely different, and you have to find what is unique to you. So perfect example, like exercise is not always first. I've got a client at the moment who's been working with me for about 2 or 3 months, and she has Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. She had a procedure where she had to have a hysterectomy, so she is at a younger age, so she is on hormone replacement therapy because of that. And she decided that she wants to now take care of her health, and she needs to drop in weight. Again, I don't weigh her. We do centimeter measurements just to monitor her progress. But she wasn't interested in exercising. So what I started with her was more qualitative, was, okay, what are you eating for breakfast at the moment? How can we make that more nourishing for your body? So for example, for somebody with Hashimoto's and on hormone replacement, there's certain foods that are better for her than not. So that's one example. Another client of mine came to me and said, when I eat salads, I get a terrible stomach ache and I have to run to the bathroom after food. What am I going to do? Every dietitian I've ever seen, I've ever gone to, has told me you just have to increase your vegetables, but I can't stick to it because I'm in pain. So somebody like that, I'm not going to tell her to do that. What I helped her with was focusing on which vegetables were going to be cause more bloating and discomfort, typically according to a low FODMAP kind of a eating plan. And she's able to eat in a slightly different way, has not exercised yet, and has dropped in weight. The first client I was speaking to you about now, who has been doing the stepwise process of making each meal a more balanced, nourishing meal, removing a lot of the mindless eating that she was doing in the afternoons. So all of this is, one step at a time. We can't fix everything all at once. Some people can come and say, just give me the black and white, and that's all I want. But it's important that it is sustainable long term. So for me, it's meeting every patient, every client where they're at, and working on the one area that they actually will feel will be the easiest to start with. So I say to them at the end of a consultation, these are the options of where we can work on. These are the areas that we want to make improvements to. What do you think you can tackle first? Because that also comes from their own sense of self-agency. I've made a choice. I'm committing to this. And I ask them to choose one thing, not 10 things, one thing, and repeat that on a daily basis. Because when you repeat those new habits, they become a new neural pathway in your brain, which I know you very, very much along the lines of. I always speak to my clients about these super highways that we have in our brains, which we don't even think about because they come from habits and thoughts that we've done and thought for years and years and years. And in order to create new habits, to create new thought patterns, we need to repeat those habits in order to be able to successfully implement those changes. So that's a little taster. If they're ready to start exercising, again, I say, let's measure your expectation with your capacity. Every single day, you can reassess for yourself. Some of my clients need to work on their sleep habits first, because if they're not sleeping well and they're too tired, then the next morning when they wake up, their appetite is higher, and their food choices the next day, especially that late afternoon dip, are going to be the higher refined sugar, quick pick-me-up foods, which if they're trying to eat well or be perfect and they hit that mid-afternoon slump, and all of a sudden they in the crisps, they in the chocolate, they in whatever happens to be lying around, then they feel that they failed themselves. So for some people, step one is, let's fix their sleep cycle. Let's get their sleep hygiene better. For other clients, it's, how stressed are you? The world is, I feel like we're in a pressure cooker at the moment, and it just seems to be getting more and more pressurized. And if we don't pay attention to our stress levels and manage what we can, the external factors we have no control over. But how we manage that internal stress, and again, our expectations of ourselves, that allows us to implement better habits. But again, if we're too stressed and we're trying to then take on a whole new way of eating, a whole new lifestyle, it's not possible. We don't have the support structures in place. So I think one of my biggest messages, more than anything, is we need to have, first of all, a unique approach, a supportive structure that is right for you as an individual, that you know that you can be successful from day one in the area that you've chosen to work on, and build on that success. Because long-term habits and sustainability with reaching goals only comes from being able to create habits that are effective and that work for your life.
Right. Very, very well said. I couldn't agree more. So in full disclosure, I've been taking a sleep class the last 2 weeks because I, changed my language around this. I used to have a challenge of sleeping, and I do a lot of things right, I want to say, but I've learned so much. And one of the things that was offered in the sleep class was to take a quiz, and then I found out that, and it's free, and I can share the link with everybody because it's really just opened my eyes. And there's 90% of the population sleeps a certain way, and then there's that 10% that doesn't really fit anywhere. And of course, I'm the 10%. And I got a time, like a very specific time when I'm supposed to go to bed, and a very specific time when I'm supposed to get up. And for years, I've been thinking that I sleep too much. And sure enough, I am what's called a dolphin, and I'm only supposed to sleep 4 cycles of my circadian rhythm, which is, around 90 minutes. And so I've been sleeping less, and I've been sleeping better because I'm following that. And of course, it impacts, my food choices and my habits because I am not as tired, and I don't necessarily have that sugar low. And I've been off coffee for the last 3 weeks, which also, I don't have that sort of up and down, but it's really, helping me to manage my energy better, which then therefore I'm managing my food choices better. So it's great that you're saying that sometimes we just need to look at the sleep, or we need to look at, what's going on around us. Are we actually in a space to change those things? I have clients that come to me and they're like, I want to quit smoking, or, they come for other reasons. And I say, you know what, now is not a good time. We need to work on these other things because it's just will put too much stress on your life. And it's not a good time to get off gluten or sugar or this or that. It's just like, look what else we need to do around it. And then we can, you can create the environment, and so that you can really be successful. Because I think you and I both agree on this and align in that's we're not looking for temporary changes. We're looking for, long, sort of permanent, long lasting changes in the way that we look at food, the way we approach it, the way, it impacts us, and so that we can have overall a healthier and more productive and more in a happier life, like altogether.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it's interesting. I want to say something on that point because I think this is where sometimes we get stuck. We believe that once we make these changes, that those are the ones that need to stick forever. And I truly believe that we need to reassess at regular intervals in our life. Are these habits still working for me? Perhaps you're in a different phase of life. As women, we do go through different phases. In our 20s, what we're capable of is very different to what we're in our 30s. And not everybody goes through the traditional getting married, having children, kids moving out. Everyone has their own decades that they busy doing different things in their life. And I think that it's so important to reassess at these junctions in our life, is this still working for me, and not stay stuck in something that isn't. That is so critical, because it worked for you before, because it was healthy for you before, because it got you to your goals before, does not necessarily mean that that is where you need to be today. So I encourage everybody to also have a very open growth mindset approach to, is this still working for me? Perhaps there's some things that I can keep. And if not, what else is out there that could be a solution for me for now? And really not stay so stuck on this is the way it has to be. Because I think, especially as women, as we phase through different times in our life, our body naturally demands different things from us. And on a very personal note, I was going through a very, very difficult time in the beginning of October, not even related to the war in Israel. Literally the day before the war started, I went to see my doctor and I said, I don't feel like myself. Something's not right. I'm not feeling good. And so it's taken a couple of months, and I've had to re-look at my eating. I even had to change how I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, how I'm exercising. So many things had to change. Now, if I had decided that this is the science and this is what I've been taught and I can't do anything differently, I would be fighting with myself on a daily basis and I wouldn't be further along the process. It is so critically important that we learn, and I think this is where the not only mindset side, but the soul component comes in. Can I listen into what my own body is telling me and what my deeper spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, neshama, what message is it giving me? Am I nourishing that side of myself? I don't know about you, but I certainly find that when I am family orientated, home orientated, work orientated, and I'm not expanding and nourishing other aspects of who I am, I have much lower levels of energy. I start becoming resentful because there's nothing that's filling me, that's giving me other nourishment. And we feel like we're on this constant treadmill of life of wake up and do the same things on repeat. So I think it's also another important aspect to this conversation that we know that not only should we be open to what solutions are right for me now, but how am I not only choosing foods and exercise and sleep habits and stress management as part of my protocol, but what am I doing on a much deeper level to connect to myself within and feel good about my life, even when things may be difficult around me.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And I think that inner voice, our intuition or whatever you want to call it, it's like when we pay attention to it, it really gives good advice. Sometimes I look at the food and I'm like, is that speaking to me? Is that really what I want right now? And maybe my one part says, yeah, I want that. But like my body will say, no, I don't want that. And I think the more we pay attention to that, the better we will feel and the better choices we will make. Like like one day it was like, I know coffee doesn't vibrate well for me. And I said, okay, so it was hard. And I just slowly weed myself off. And, sometimes it's still hard because it's such a social thing. And, it's like fun to sit with somebody and have a cup of coffee or, a cappuccino. But my body doesn't want it. My body wants other things. So I'm listening to that. One of the things I wanted to say about what you said about being open is really the opportunity to go beyond of what we know. So, I have been on this quest this year to really look at things that have been very persistent in my life. Like I've been struggling with sleep. I've been struggling with my heartburn that I have. And then I was diagnosed with osteopenia. And I laugh about it now because I was like, oh my God, I thought I was so healthy. How could that happen? But I broke my hand and I'm like, well, maybe you should just like check and make sure that everything was okay. And, it didn't take me very long to sort of be okay with the osteopenia. It was just like, it's just a test. And what does that really mean? It just really means that you have an opportunity to just look and adjust things. So I've been very radical about, let's just see what's possible. What is it that can be, what can I manifest and who are the right people to assist me in moving forward? And yes, I'm no longer in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or what have you. And we have to adjust. So maybe I don't want to run a marathon again because that's not what's up for me. But at the same time, to be really open and look for the sort of impossible, because there's so many things out there and there's so much information. And sometimes we just need a little bit from here and a little piece from here and a little piece from here, and then it will all fall into places. When we stay strong on our quest and our vision to to get healthy. So let me just
Absolutely.
stop there.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, because last week I had a client and she said to me that she doesn't believe that she's putting enough effort in for the results that she's getting.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So she expects herself, she's one of those who's been on strict diets before, that she expects that she has to be eating a certain way in order to be getting certain results. And we had a discussion around how all the work that she's ever done in her life has led her to this moment. And she's working with a psychologist, she's working with me on the food, and emotional side of things to food. And I said to her, don't underestimate the power of the collective work that you've done over your whole life. Just because you're not putting all of that effort that you think you should in now does not mean that everything that you've done up until now is null and void. It's all part of who you are today. And exactly what you were saying, it's so important that we honor where we come from. We can look back and we can say, okay, that was working, that isn't working, and where do I go to from here? But sometimes we can put huge effort in and we don't get the results. But other times, we just put that little something extra in, and a whole new world opens up to us. So if that message is the only message that anybody takes from today, I highly encourage you never to underestimate the power of doing one small thing, because that collective effect of doing one small thing really and truly sets you up for achieving the long-term goal that you're working towards. And appreciate every effort that you put in as well.
Absolutely. And every day of, appreciate yourself, acknowledge yourself, and champion yourself for the things that you're doing. There's a famous story about a snowflake and, how the branch breaks. Have you heard about it? It's basically the moral of the story is that, there were some birds that needed a branch to fall off a tree. And they were completely in despair because it's like, how can we make it happen? We can't take the branch off. And then one by one, the snowflake, fell on the branch, and it was heavier and heavier and heavier until that last little snowflake broke off the branch. And sure enough, the goal was accomplished. So everything that we do, because there's so much negativity out there, if you walk away with one thing today, is that whatever efforts that you are making, and even if you're not making any efforts, speak to yourself in kind words, appreciate yourself, champion yourself, look at yourself in the mirror, tell yourself that you love yourself, because that is actually exactly what you need in order to be preparing yourself or to continue with the change that you want to accomplish. And there's one more thing that I want to say. So for those of you who don't know me, I work with muscle testing, and one of the ways that I help people achieve and align with their goals is to look at the subconscious and the unconscious. And since we know that that's 90% of why we do things and why we don't do things, a lot of times what I'm finding is that when people have done a lot of the right things, but they're not really seeing the results that they want to look for or what they want to experience, that there's some misalignment in that subconscious and unconscious. And what I mean by that is that a blind spot is that somehow we're sabotaging ourselves and we don't even know that we're doing it because we haven't connected the dots. So when we're talking about weight, and we're talking about how the way we look, and all those things that are connected to it, there's often levels of self-worth. There's often feeling good enough. There's shame, and so there's deep emotions that are connected to it that we've buried down because we don't want to feel it. So one of the ways to make sure that we're aligned with the goals that we have, whether it's in the area that you're working in, or wherever people are looking to move forward, to manifest things, is to really take a look and see. And sometimes your intuition will tell you. Like, is there something? Is there something holding me back? You know, what could it possibly be? And when we meditate and when we sit down and are quiet, we have a better chance to get in touch with it. And certainly muscle testing, what I do, kinesiology, it's a quick way, it's a fast way, because we're always into fast these days. We want to know what's going on, and we're like, tell me, what is it? So that's important to note, and to have that conversation with yourself.
Barbara,
I want to switch.
can I ask something?
Yeah,
because, and I just
yeah,
want to
go
jump
ahead.
back to what you mentioned before about looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you love yourself. And I've come up against a lot of resistance with this before, not necessarily personally, although there have been times in my life that I find it can be very difficult to look in the mirror and say, I love myself. And I think that especially when you're speaking about like those deeper levels of subconscious, there can be that inner resistance that doesn't quite feel authentic or genuine when you're saying that. And I find, and maybe you can, give me a little bit more clarity from your side with this, but that having also the expectation of needing to love ourselves may be difficult and challenging for some people, especially if we don't believe that we deserve it, or we have shame, or we aren't where we want to be yet. And I'm curious, like how you would address that. But one way that I encourage my clients with is to say to them, to be able to look in the mirror and say, I appreciate what I'm doing right now to take care of myself. Like, to be able to still give themselves a positive message when they're looking at their reflection, because so many women look in the mirror and have a very critical dialogue that they're not even aware of that's happening at the same time. So I'm just wondering, like, if you have like a statement that maybe you suggest, or I'm sure there's a lot of deep inner work that you do with your clients, and especially with the muscle testing, with what comes up with that. But when you said it, it immediately made me think of clients of mine in the past who struggle with this, some of the clients who struggle with giving themselves a high five and to say that they have a job well done. Like, there's something within them that doesn't necessarily always believe that they can be proud of themselves, that they can love themselves. Can we go there?
Yeah, let's go there. So I want to answer that in so many ways. So my first answer to that is always have the conversation that is above that conversation. So elevate the conversation. So I would have a conversation around, why is that so hard? Like, why don't I want to say those things? It doesn't necessarily have to be I love myself. It could be I appreciate myself, like something positive. It's like, what is preventing me to look at myself with softer eyes? So that's a really good conversation to have, because then we're getting into the deeper layers of what's really going on. That's one. Number two is I do this exercise that I took from Richard Carson. He wrote a book. It's called Taming Your Gremlin. And I just basically expanded that concept. And the concept is that we have this nagging little gremlin on our shoulder, constantly telling ourselves, not good enough. You're not pretty enough. Do your nails. You're eating too much. It's like always nagging us. And the idea is to first get to know your gremlin. You can make a persona out of it. Give it a name, an age. It has favorite sayings. When does it show up? Really get to know this gremlin and all the details about the gremlin, and write it down, and then start to observe it, and then to see what you need to do with that gremlin. Definitely don't get into a fight with the gremlin, because the gremlin is there to protect you. It has that way of protecting you in a negative way. Don't expand your comfort zone. That's too scary. Stay small. Do what you know. Part of that is coming from something that's called loss aversion. Loss aversion has to do with when we were in the cave and we didn't want to go out to fight because that was dangerous. So the idea was, I'm going to hold on to my little tiny moldy berries because that's safe. I'm not going to go out and shoot the lion. So the gremlin is a way that we're almost conditioned to protect ourselves. So you want to get to know the gremlin. You want to really find out age, personality, favorite saying, when does it show up? And the way to deal with the gremlin is to be kind and generous with the gremlin, But what I found the best thing to do, and this might take a little bit of effort and work, is to give the gremlin a new job. So my gremlin used to be this Valkyrie from the Germanic halls of Woden, you know, protecting myself, very strong. I can do it. I'm independent. You know, I don't need anybody. And I took that energy and moved it into you be the explorer. You check things out. You go somewhere and you like find out what, you know, if there's new things to do and meet new people. And you know, it's like pretty much that way. I would not say 100% of the time, but it's like I have taken my gremlin and given my gremlin a new job. So I'm working with myself and directing myself into a different, you know, into a different area in a different way, because we need to take that energy and move it forward. So thirdly, I'm going to give one more tip. One of the things I think is really good, and this is in general if you have a lot of negativity, it's like, I don't want to do this, or I ate too much, or I feel blousy, or I didn't exercise, you know, all the stuff that you've got going on. You really, really can't seem to change that conversation around. Take a piece of paper and a pen, lock yourself somewhere without your phone for 15 minutes, better it's in half an hour. Write down all the thoughts that you have, dump all your negativity on that piece of paper. I don't care how crass it is. But before you start, you must commit to destroying that piece of paper, meaning burning it is best, or flushing it down the toilet. You can't just throw it in the garbage because it's an energy release. So what you're doing is you're taking all your negativity, you're vomiting basically on that piece of paper, but you're allowing yourself to go all out because you know nobody's going to read it. And then you feel lighter because you actually did something with that negativity, that judgment, and you released it in some way. So, and some of us, because we have a lot of negativity, we have a lot of garbage around the subject, we might need to do it for a while, you know, 3 times a week for 15 minutes, but it really will make a difference. And first of all, I've done this myself a lot. And the clients that I tell them, or I ask them to do it, they really report that they feel lighter. They feel like there's a shift, there's an opening, they have less of a load. So it doesn't matter what the subject matter. It can be, you know, food and diet and exercise and all those kind of things. But it can also be other things like, you know, relationships, or, you know, boyfriends or girlfriends that left you, or parents, or whatever we have negative, really negativity around.
I think it's a very, very valuable exercise, and I don't do it enough, but I know that whenever I have done it, things come out on that piece of paper that I didn't even realize I had in my head. And I think that it is incredibly valuable and part of getting to know who we are as human beings, because, you know, you do so much of this work, but we work on such a surface level. We're so focused on the conscious mind and what's in front of our eyes and what we can see and hear. But there's so many depths and layers beyond that. And I think that is where a lot of those thoughts and a lot of those beliefs and a lot of those emotions and feelings that we're holding in our body, that's where they sit. And so to get it out and to be able to express it like that, without judgment. You know, it's not that you're writing it down to judge it. I think that's so a critical part of it as well, is to be able to say, this needs to come out of me. And I'm going to, something I really always encourage my clients to do is to be an observer in their lives as well. Let me be curious about this, because also with forming new habits, be curious about whether this works for you or not. Try it out today. Perhaps it works, perhaps it doesn't. If it works, you can keep it tomorrow and see if it works again. And maybe you try something and it doesn't work, and that's okay, and you get rid of that. So just to have this ability to be curious about new things that you're doing and trying, curious about thoughts that you may be having about yourself, curious about whether things are working in your life or not. It just changes and reframes that very serious aspect to our lives where we want an answer and we want to know that we're doing the right thing. And if we don't, then we're going to be hard on ourselves. It removes that criticism and judgment that we have with ourselves. And again, is an open way of approaching things. It is a more growth orientated way for anything in life. I advocate that.
Totally. And just to add one more thing, we don't have to figure everything out ourselves. It's totally okay to call a dietitian and say, hey, listen, I have heartburn. Help me figure out what I can eat. Or, to call a coach and say, hey, I have da-da-da. Can you help me move forward or get unstuck? So I think it's one of the things that we still hesitate as a society, of that pressure. I need to figure things out by myself, and I can't ask for help. So let's recap for a moment, because I want to give you a few minutes to tell people about resources that you have. So what are we walking away with today? We're walking away with what I just said last. If you need something, find a specialist, find somebody that can help you with what you're struggling with. Reach out. But also, wherever you are, find some time to appreciate yourself, to champion yourself, whether it's, looking yourself in the mirror, or, doing what Justine suggested, make small steps. Doesn't matter. It's always a good day to move something forward, no matter how little it is. And if you're struggling with a particular issue, it's like me, heartburn, or, have osteopenia, find out, contact Justine and see what's available, how she can assist you in moving that forward, or, resolving it in a way that you want it to be resolved. What did I forget? What else did we? What nuggets do we? What else do we?
I think that was very valuable. I think the other messages that I really want people to take from today is to approach things with curiosity, be open to trying new things without making major commitments to yourself. Show up each day and ask yourself the question of, where am I today? What's the word I'm thinking of here? What will serve me best today? Does movement serve me best today? Do I need to sleep for an extra 10 minutes? What foods can I eat that will be nourishing for me? How do I want to feel after I eat this meal? And therefore make a choice, with knowledge of how certain foods, whether they energize you or not. I'd love to sit down and eat a bowl of pasta at lunchtime, but I know by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be worth nothing. So I make a choice of something that I enjoy, but that also is going to energize me. Definitely, I think asking for support and seeing somebody who can tweak things for you and do things in a way that makes practical sense in your life. Finding somebody who can give you the most individualized and unique approach, so that you're not just another sausage in the sausage factory getting the same advice, is so important. And also, having the ability to let go of that which may no longer be serving you, be open to reassessing at different stages of your life. What do I need now? What is my next step? What will serve me best? And am I working with the right people? Can I do this myself? Where am I going from here? In a loving, nurturing, positive way, because as women, we have that at our core. We are naturally more nurturing, but we often do that service to others, to family, to friends who we love, but very seldom do we give ourselves that time. Do we turn that nurturing, compassion, care inwards? And I think that, for me, is one of the biggest messages that anybody needs to come away with today, is to turn those wonderful feminine strengths that you have to run a business, to manage a team, to be an employee, to be a mother, wife, whatever your role and the different hats you wear on, and turn it inwards. Turn it inwards, because then you will be able to show up so much stronger in the world, and not only be stronger for it, but be able to be the person you are meant to be. And that will positively affect everyone around you as well.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So tell us how we can reach you. And I already posted your website, but I think there's something else that you wanted to talk about.
So
So
yes, I have for ladies who are in their 30s, you don't have to be over 40 to download this free mini course that I have. I have a course which says it's 3 things every woman needs to know before turning 40. And these are the things I really wish I knew before I turned 40, because it would have made my life way easier. I would have been far more compassionate with myself. So that's a free course that I have. On my website, I have a lot of other resources. I have links to my YouTube videos, of which I've given a lot of free webinars over the years. I also have information about how to work one-to-one with me. I have an option of a power hour if you just need a few little tweaks that I offer, also a few weeks follow-up support after that, which is very valuable. And I have 2 wonderful masterclasses, one on how to boost your metabolism and mood, and the other one on the vagus nerve, which is all about stress management techniques, which is phenomenal. And then launching soon is my 12-week online group program. It's still in the works. I'm changing it from a live to a more drop in and out as you need. So I'm busy with that at the moment, but there's so much other content on my website, and I would be happy to speak with you. I offer a 15-minute complimentary clarity call for anybody who wants to find out a little bit more, ask a question, see if working with me would be a good fit for you. And if not, I can always point you in the right direction. So everything is on my website. And thank you, Barbara, for posting those links there. And I would love to help anyone who has resonated with the messages that I have discussed with Barbara tonight. And I really just appreciate you hosting me, Barbara. Thank you so much. The work that you do is so valuable.
No, thank you. Well, it's my pleasure. And so if you feel inspired, make a time to see Justine, to talk to her and see how she can help you. I really encourage you to do so. And I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm going to say goodbye and thank you so much for joining us, and have a fabulous rest of the month. Take care.